lesson 211, problem solving with rational numbers. So we need to remember how to write sentences. So it's going to give us information in the sentence and in the word problems. So the first thing we have to do is remember what certain words mean. The word of in math, what does the word of in math mean? Who remembers that? It does mean multiply, okay? So of means multiply. What does is mean? Is. What do you think the word is means in math? It means equals. Good job. Okay. Is means equals. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at number 1. It says, find 2/3 of 30. So that means I'm going to take 2 over 3, 2/3, and times it by 30, because that's what it's telling me to do. 2/3 of 30. Now, is 30 a fraction? No. How do I make 30 into a fraction? You put a 1 underneath it. Good. And then we go back to our fraction rules. When we multiply the top numbers by the top numbers, and bottom numbers by bottom numbers. So our numerators are the top. 2 times 30 gives me 60. Good. 3 times 1 gives me 3. Now, if you can solve that and simplify, you actually do. So what is 60 divided by 3? 20. Good. So 2/3 of 30 is 20. So our final answer is 20 for number 1. Okay, you guys try number 2. Okay, we've got a couple minutes to work on that. So 1/5 of 25, we're going to write it as 1 over 5, 1/5. Of means times, and then I'll put 25 over 1. You multiply your top numbers, 1 times 25 gives me 25. Multiply the bottoms, 1 times 5 gives me 5. Divide them out, you get 5. Most of you got that one right. Good job. 8/9. So that means 8 over 9 of 27 times 27 over 1. Multiply tops, multiply bottoms. What do you get for a top number? 216, good. Divide by 9 gives us how big? 24. Gives us 24. Number 4. It says 3/4 of 84, so that's 3 over 4, 3/4 of 84 over 1. Multiply your tops, multiply your bottoms. We're going to get 252. Dividing by 4, which gives us how big? Good, 63. Perfect. All right, let's take a look at our bottom questions. A couple of problem-solving ones down here. Now we're going to be dealing with negative and positive numbers. So if you go in debt, debt means you owe money. So it means you're in the negative. So we use negative numbers to show that we owe money. Okay? So it says, in the beginning of June, the Frosty Snowblower Company was in debt, $235.46. By the end of August, they increased how much they owe. So that means they're in further debt. They're in more debt by $156.71. So it says use a rational number or rational numbers to represent that situation. So we're in debt $235. So we're in debt, that means it's a negative number. So negative $235.46. And then we increase, the word increase means we add, but we're adding more debt. So we're adding another negative value. We're adding negative $156.71. So that means we're owing more money. So it says, letter B says calculate how much they owe at the end of August. So now we just add both those negative numbers. How much do they owe at the end of August? Not 20 trillion. Use your calculator.
Close enough, John. Close enough.
Good. They owe $392.17. Now, is that the way I would write that?
Yes,
Is that the way they would say it?
minus.
Aha, we're missing the negative sign. They owe that much money, so you have to put a negative sign in front of that money because they owe that money. Okay, so don't forget that negative sign. It's very important there. Now we have a couple different ones. this one here, it says a cliff diver, so a diver jumps off a cliff that is 14.7 meters above the sea level. After hitting the water, he plunges 3.8 below the surface. So he goes under 3.8 meters before he goes back up. So you know when you go in the water, you kind of plunge down, you kind of hang down there, and then go back up, right? So we need to draw the situation. What's actually happening here? So here's my cliff. There's my platform. Okay, here's my cliff. Here's my water. Now, how high is that cliff? How high above sea level? So how high above the water is that cliff? Good, 14.7 meters. So this is 14.7 meters. Okay? How low does he go in the water? 3.8. So he's down below 3.8 meters. Okay, but he's below the water. Okay. Let's take a look now. It says, use irrational numbers to represent the difference in height from the top to the bottom of the dive. All right, we want the difference in height. Well, if he's below the water, what kind of 3.8 is it? It's a negative 3.8. Good, because it's under the water, so that's a negative number. So now we're going to draw what this sentence says. Okay, so we've got our top of the cliff, 14.7 meters. Now, we're diving. We're going below, so we're going under. So we're going to subtract how many meters? 3.8. Good. So we're subtracting a negative 3.8 meters. Okay? Because we're subtracting that negative value. You want to find the difference. Difference means subtract. Okay? So that's why we're subtracting. Difference means subtract. So that's where that first subtract sign comes from. But remember, it's a negative 3.8 because he's under the water. Okay, above the water is positive, under the water is negative. Okay? All right. D says the water is 6.6 meters deep. So he's not right to the bottom. He goes down to the bottom. The bottom will be way down here. And so from the top of the water to the bottom is actually, it tells us, 5.6 meters. So let's solve the difference here on A. Let's solve our difference. So what is the difference? How far did he actually go down? Remember, signs in the middle are the same. Do what? They turn to pluses, okay? They turn to positives. And everybody type that in. How big is it? How far did he go down? Good. 18.5 meters. Okay, that's the total distance he dove. Okay, from that top of that cliff to the bottom of where he sunk in the water. Now, he didn't hit the bottom of the ocean, okay? He didn't hit the bottom of the ocean because it says it's actually 5.6 meters below, okay? So, we want to know, it says now, what is the distance from the ocean floor to the bottom of the dive? Okay? So, what's the difference between the bottom of the ocean and his dive? So, how are we going to figure that out? Yeah.
Take 5.6 and subtract 3.8.
Okay, yes, but now 3.8 is a negative number, right? So 5.6, since it's below water, is also a negative. So we'd have negative 5.6 subtracting negative 3.8. Now we solve that. Okay, again, the two numbers in the middle, the two signs become positives. So let's find that there, please. So what is the distance from the ocean floor to the bottom of the dive? Yes.
Negative 1.8.
Good, negative 1.8 meters. Now, is it an actual negative meter? Can you have a negative meter? No, we have a distance underwater which makes it negative. Does that make sense? But it's actually still a positive value. So, we would say this is called the absolute value of that. The absolute value of it means it's got to have a positive answer because you're talking about the distance between something. And remember, distance can never be the negative. The reason it was negative is because we were underwater. That's all the negative sign showed us there. Okay? All right. So our difference is 1.8. So from the bottom of the dive to where he was in the water, he had to go another 1.8 meters to touch the bottom of the ocean. Does that make sense? That's how far he was from the bottom. All right, let's take a look at the next question. Now this is one that you might see in home ec class. Okay? We often see this one in home ec class. Okay, so we got a recipe for apple fritters. 20 fritters is what you make if you've got 2/3 a cup of milk. Okay? So 2/3 of a cup of milk. Now that's going to make us 20. We only want to make 5 fritters. We only want to make 5 fritters. So how much is going to make 5 fritters? Well, how do I get from 20 to 5? What do I do to the 20 to get to 5? I divide by 4. It's either a multiplying or dividing. So I would divide by 4. Well, that means I have to take 2/3 and I also have to divide by 4. Because really what we're doing is we're setting up a fraction. So what this actually looks like is this. 2/3 over 20 is equal to something over 5. So what is it? All you're doing is saying, what did they do to 5? What did they do to the 5? They divided it by 4. So we're going to have to take the 2/3 and also divide by 4 to make an equivalent fraction. That's all we're doing. Okay? So let's take a look and see what that would look like. If I divide by 4, is 4 a fraction yet? No, I'm going to have to make it into a fraction. So I'm going to put it over 1. Now what do I have to do? I have to flip and times. Good. So I'm going to go 2/3 times 1 over 4. So let's multiply our top numbers, then multiply our bottom numbers. Okay, I run out of room on the top here, so I'm just writing in the next question. Hopefully you have enough room to write it down. So we times our tops, then we times our bottoms. We're going to get 2 divided by 12. Now, we have 2 divided by 12. It's going to reduce. Good. What does it reduce to? 1 over 6. Good. You can divide the top and the bottom both by 2. So that's going to give you 1 over 6. So that means you need 1/6 of a cup of milk. Okay? You no longer use 2/3 of a cup of milk. You need 1/6 of a cup of milk. Is what it's telling us to make 5 apple fritters instead of 20. Okay, now we're on the electrical crew. It says it takes an electrical crew 1 day to install a cable that's 1/3 mile. Okay, so a 1/3 mile cable takes exactly 1 day to put that in. How long is it going to be able to lay a cable that is a road that is 2 2/3 of a mile long? That means it's really long. Well, we can set that up as a ratio again. So we have 1 day is 1/3 of a mile. We want X days, we don't know how many days it's going to take, to have 2 2/3 mile. Okay? So we can set this up as a cross multiply and divide, or we can actually set it up as a ratio question where we're dividing one by the other. So how many basically thirds? How many thirds are in 2 2/3 is what we're trying to find.
6.
Okay? Well, in 2 of them, think of it this way. In one whole divided into 3 parts has 3. So 1 whole has 3. How much would 2 wholes have? 6. And then I have an extra 2. So how many thirds do I actually have? I have 8 thirds. Okay, I actually have 8 thirds. So if I want 8 thirds, how many days is it going to make me? 8 days, good. Because 1 day, match the one on top. 1 day is 1/3. 8 days would be 8 thirds of a mile. Okay, does that make sense? Because it's a 1-to-1. 1 day for 1/3. Well, if I have 8 thirds, it's going to take me 8 days. Okay? Give these 2 a try. Push pause now and play when you're... Alright, so the first one says, if 2/3 of the pizza has been eaten, how much is left? Well, if you even just draw a picture and divide it into 3 parts, well, I'm going to eat 2 parts. How much is left? 1. Good. So 1/3 left. Okay? The next one. You have 28 apples in a bag. Tom's going to eat 2/7 of them. So that means 2/7 are gone. If 2 out of 7 are gone, how many are still there? 5 out of 7. So we have 2 out of 7 that are eaten. That means there's 5 out of 7 left. Okay? So, 2 ways to do this. You can find out what 2/7 of 28 is, and then subtract from your total of 28. Or you can just take 5/7 out of 28. That's how much are left, period. So, if I take 2 over 7 of 28, 28 over 1, I multiply tops, multiply bottoms, I'm going to get 56 over 7 is 8. That means 8 apples were eaten. So if 8 apples were eaten, how many are left out of 20? 8. 20, yes. Out of 28, 20 are left. So that means 20 apples are left. Okay? Now, taken the 5 over 7 and figured it out first. So you would have taken 5 over 7 times the 28 over 1, and you would have got an answer of 20 instead of 8. And then that's how much would be left. Okay? This is the end of lesson 11.